You're watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez.
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is news that makes you healthier. We're talking metabolism today, but not the same old stuff. Randy, we are bringing on two of my nutrition friends to talk about metabolism in a completely different way, how to use metabolism to heal chronic disease and chronic symptoms. It's going to be a good show.
Good. Now, Jeannie, the nutritionist, clinical nutritionist, she was your go-to person when you wanted an outside coach.
Exactly.
Is that right?
I needed a coach, when a couple of years ago I was finding myself trending back towards adrenal fatigue, wasn't sleeping well, was back in that stress cycle, and I needed someone to be accountable to, and I liked their philosophy, which we're going to hear about today, which is much different than the way I was approaching food, where they really talk about, the food frequency and the type of food, and they use temperature and pulse to figure out how that meal's working for you
so that you
or
take
against
your pulse while you're eating, do your body temperature, and that will tell them something.
5 times a day when you wake up, before you go to bed, and about 20 to 30 minutes after each meal, you're taking your temperature and pulse, because then you're knowing, did that meal work for me or work against me? When you're actually trying to heal your metabolism, you need to go to a healing diet, and then you transition to what your maintenance diet is.
On this healing, we're talking about people that have specific symptoms like constipation, fatigue, maybe brain fog, a lot of problems, right?
Anxiety,
can't sleep,
insomnia,
all those
total, lack of energy.
And they say, and I can't wait to hear them explain this, that no leafy greens at the beginning, because they're hard to digest. You could see them in your stool, he said. And root vegetables and fruits.
Yep, roots and fruits. Animals, roots, and fruits is basically their philosophy, which we're going to hear from. And it's fascinating. They use a lot of Ray Peat's work and several different doctors that really have never been brought into the mainstream, because all we hear about these days would be the traditional dietary theories like paleo or veganism or the raw food diet. And this is something that is still really under the radar. It's a completely different approach to healing that works enough to where
you refer people,
I did
right?
it, and it pulled me out of adrenal fatigue within about 4 to 6 weeks, and so that I could go back and get to that new level of healing. And now they're my primary go-to. When people come to the whole journey and they have thyroid issues, adrenal fatigue, trouble losing weight, they can't sleep, and they need to work on their metabolism, that's who I send them to, because I trust them implicitly.
So the men you send to him, and the women? Because they're a husband and wife team.
They're a husband and wife team, Josh and Jeannie, Reuben, and I just send everybody to East-West Healing, and then they can figure out who resonates most with them. Some people are going to resonate towards Jeannie, some people are going to resonate towards Josh, and so we let them sort it out.
So let's bring Jeannie on. We'll take a quick break.
Great.
And you interview Jeannie.
I'm going to interview Jeannie, and we're going to see if we can redefine metabolism.
Okay, good. We'll be right back.
You're watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is news that makes you healthier. And today we have someone very special coming on. Her name is Jeannie Rubin from East-West Healing, and she's a clinical nutritionist. And as you guys know, I have worked with her personally. Jeannie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christa. I'm so excited to be here.
The world needs this information. As I told you before we started,
yes,
it's very important. Your take on metabolism is different than any other take I have ever seen. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, our take on metabolism is really the sum total of biochemical processes in the body. It's really how our body is taking all of the information coming in us, whether it be nutrition, exercise, sleep, all of those variables that make up who we are, and is to some degree creating energy for us to...
It's exactly what it is. You're saying metabolism is really the whole of life. It's not just what we're used to hearing of, my metabolism is fast, I lose weight easy, my metabolism is slow.
It has absolutely nothing to do with how lean or how heavy we are. It has everything to do with, again, all of the different parts and pieces. And that's really what we're looking at, and helping people to use nutrition to begin to restore how the body is
So let's talk about how we assess metabolic health, how you assess metabolic health in your practice.
Well, the very first thing we need to do is understand who it is we're working with. So people are coming in from all different walks of life through many different experiences. So it's really understanding, as we've kind of coined, where they lie on the metabolic meter. You know, what's the extreme or, you know, how chronic have they become, or are they just kind of borderline? And what, you know, that's going to really give us the information we need on how we're going to start this process with them. So,
and then you start it, and it's temperature and pulse. That's how
we're
you assess.
using primarily temperature and pulse because it's allowing us to get it's a great feedback mechanism, so it's allowing us to see exactly how somebody is in response to their environment.
Instantly.
You know, instantly. And the interesting thing is that what's happening metabolically in the system is an accumulation of habits and decisions, and our body adapts to those things. So we don't tend to understand what's occurring in our body in the way that we might identify it as a stress. You know, it's become our norm, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we are completely unattached to the effects that may be having on us metabolically.
I just want to repeat that for our viewers because it was so powerful. If you guys heard what Jeannie said, is what's happening in our body metabolically is an accumulation of our habits and decisions, which means habits and decisions can be changed right now. And so you can start to change the whirlpool, so to speak, in a different direction. And I love how you guys do that. And that is a way to address biochemical individuality.
You know, I've had a conversation with a couple different people even just this last week, who I really had to explain to them that they have a choice and that they are not doomed per se to what's happening in their body, that they can begin to turn this around. And I was kind of shocked by the response that I received, because it was like they were so grateful for the fact that they aren't stuck where they're at, and there is a possibility for them to begin turning this around. And I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, because there is a lot of anxiety that comes along with not understanding what's going on in your body.
And something I always talk about is food is medicine, and you guys use the term food as supplementation.
Food as supplementation.
I love it. So let's hear about what is different about your approach. What do people eat? And how do they get the direct feedback to know if that meal worked for them or not?
Well, the question you're asking is a really interesting question, because as we were just talking about, people are coming in well-versed in what a healthy diet is. You know, they understand what a healthy diet is, and I'm eating healthy, I've been on this diet, I've been on that diet, so how are you going to tell me that using food is going to help me? Well, again, when we are struggling with metabolic processes, or when the metabolism is being suppressed, how we're digesting is also being affected. So we have to begin to look at food in a new way. We also have to look at what's happening with blood sugar and whatnot. So we're choosing foods, but dependent upon where somebody starts, and slowly beginning to introduce these foods in balance to help regulate blood sugar. So we are, you know, we're not doing anything crazy here. We're simply teaching.
Simple. You're bringing people back to
thing.
basics.
Yes.
And I've said this so many times before, but balanced, steady blood sugars are the one thing that people who live to 100 years old have in common.
Yes.
That is really important. You balance your blood sugar, you change your moods, you change your energy levels, you really change your whole experience of life.
Right, and there's a big interference again when we're looking at, most people are running in survival mode, in that fight or flight state.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we don't understand that there's a lot of biochemical processes that are happening in the body when we're under fight or flight. When we're running from a saber-toothed tiger, our body is not interested in digesting. It's not interested in procreation. And so when we look at that from a blood sugar point of view and glycogen reserves, but we're doing this, you know, what we're doing is we're using, and we're not building. And people don't understand that you can't use and build at the same time. So if we're exhausting our bodies and we're not rebuilding and giving the body the proper resources, that we are going to end up, the body has no choice but to compensate. It is going to compensate. And a lot of the times when we think about different stages, you know, that metabolic meter, it's going to feel really good to start off with. You
because it's running on cortisol.
and it feels really good, right?
It's on drugs, basically.
Exactly. I mean, those are the types of drugs that we use to reduce pain or inflammation or anything like that. So, you know, they're necessary. They're essential to our survival. But again, we're overusing them and we're not bouncing back from that.
You know, okay, I'm going to switch. We're going to talk with Randy and Josh in a minute about food, but I want to ask you about this before, because I know this is kind of your specialty. When people are running off of cortisol, that fight or flight response, guys, and we want to get them out of it, it's addictive. We become used to that way of being, and that feels productive to us. And so you can, I would say all the healthy food and supplements in the world aren't going to touch it. You need to change your belief system and your relationship to stress. And really, it's almost like parenting yourself in a way to say, okay, I'm not going to do this to myself anymore. So talk about that before we bring Josh on.
So that's an interesting question because it is a challenge. You know, we do get addicted to that feeling. And, you know, I was recently consulting with a client who, you know, realized that that's what she was functioning on. It was adrenaline. And how we're doing our lives, even going back to survival, we make ourselves busy to avoid other parts and pieces, you know? So when we do go quiet, that can become a very uncomfortable space. So it really is, as I said earlier, that word resources, it's building those resources. It's not just about food. We can use food very effectively in helping to regulate the system and begin that rebuilding process. But it also allows us to look at other parts and pieces that are going to help you begin to choose differently about how you are approaching things and recognizing that, oh, well, maybe that worked for me at one time in my life, maybe not working for me so much now. So here's an opportunity to switch that around a little bit and do things differently.
It's so profound. It truly is. If you really want to help someone shift something for the long term to where it's not just a way of eating and then they fall back, you're shifting that entire belief system of, I'm not going to respond and react like that anymore to stress. I'm not going to basically browbeat myself,
or
which
I'm
is
just going to do
that
it.
Addiction is.
I'm going to do it differently. You know, some people, like this client in particular, it was like, what are some dynamic actions that you can take? Because sitting and doing nothing obviously is not going to work. You know, so is it walking the dog? And she in particular, you know, got some coloring books, some adult coloring books, and that's how she's going to spend her time, kind of quiet in a quiet place without having to do, but be with herself, you know, in a new way. Yeah.
I call those things primary food.
Yeah.
Jeannie, it's always awesome to have you and to talk with you about this. Thank you for being here. I think we're going to talk about the actual food that we eat, and we're going to bring on Josh and Randy and let them take it away.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
I'm Randy Alvarez. You're watching the Randy and Christa show. Christa interviewed with Jeannie. Very nice. Very interesting.
It's very interesting.
It's a big topic.
It's
when you have to condense it into 10 minutes.
Well, we could talk about it for hours, but the biggest takeaways from that is that, you know, biochemical individuality is so important, and you need to meet people where they are on that metabolic meter. We're all at different stages of a broken metabolism or in metabolic chaos. But then also, I liked how she talked about the cortisol piece. We get addicted to that way of being, and that's what I really like about Jeannie and why I went to somebody, accountability partner. You get stuck in a cycle and you don't know how to get out of it. You need help beyond the food. That's really important, so you don't just put yourself right back in that situation.
Okay, good.
And now you're going to talk to Josh about the actual food, right?
Yeah. We're going to talk about what his plan is, and plus I have questions about this pulse and the body temperature and the connection there. Yeah. And they have strong views on leafy greens and roots. They don't like leafy greens, so I really want to hit him hard with that and find out what's.
We asked him about fat because they've got a totally different take on dietary fat, and they call it pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory animal fats.
Okay,
I mean, as a salmon lover, I think you'll be interested in it.
Okay, good. We'll be right back. You're watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're talking about metabolism today, and with us we have an expert on this topic, Josh Rubin. Josh, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, you're right here in Carlsbad. You have 2 offices?
Yeah, we work out of our house, and we have an office in Carlsbad as well.
Now, and I have a list of questions, but who's your typical client that goes to see you?
Typical client is really anyone that's struggling, that's tried this or that and it hasn't worked for them.
Struggling with what?
Just usually like constipation, chronic fatigue, PMS, infertility, no libido. You know, they've tried everything and nothing's worked. They spent tons of money working with different practitioners and it just hasn't worked. That's our typical client. And they just want to feel better.
And you work as a team, you and your wife.
Me and my wife are a team.
In fact, Christa Recchio, didn't she go to your wife?
She worked with my wife, yes.
They work together? Okay.
Yeah, they work very well together.
So let's talk a little bit about this body temperature and pulse. Yeah. Is that like a key component to your system?
Yeah, it's a huge component. And it's great because it's simple. You take your pulse, you grab a $3 thermometer and you put it in your mouth. You don't have to spend $400.
And what does that tell you as a clinician?
It really, the science of it is, it was actually created or invented by a doctor, Dr. Broda Barnes, and you're looking at how your cells are producing energy at the cellular level. Cell energy is who we are, right? It's what makes us feel good. It's what makes you go to the bathroom. You know, it's what makes us have energy. So you're looking at that, and your cells are in all your tissues. You're basically a conglomeration of cells. The simplicity is, if you're within the norm, how you're living and how you're eating is actually working for you. You're actually in a metabolic state. You're in a balanced homeostatic state. So you can go to the bathroom, so you can have a libido and feel great all the time. If you're not within the norm, which is your 97.8 to 98.6 temperature, pulse is a little different. This is a huge topic, but for us, if we can get someone in the 70s at a resting rate, that's normal. If you're not within that, you're basically in an inflammatory state. And how you're living is not working for you. It's that simple. So people say, well, I eat organic or I'm vegan and it's healthy. Well, say, take your body temperature and pulse in the morning before you get out of bed. Body doesn't lie. And that's going to tell us if what you're doing is working. So you have
like a specific algorithm that you talk to them about, and you know whether they're healthy or unhealthy. Yeah. So you assess their metabolic health when they come to you.
The body's always changing, right? You do a lab, you're getting 2 seconds of what your body is at that moment, but it could change in the next 10 minutes. So for us, body temperature and pulse is something people can do when they wake up in bed. That's their baseline. That is how your body is functioning on a daily basis. Okay. And then we have people take it after certain meals because we want to see if how they're eating and how they're living is working to regulate their blood sugar to push them into a more metabolic state so they can feel good and have that energy to do the things they want to do, to take their kids and play with their kids. A lot of people say, I don't have the energy to play with my kids, right? And that's what we want to help people with. And by using this easy feedback, people can get a gauge, oh, this meal didn't work for me, or this food frequency didn't work for me, or whatever didn't work for me. I need to change it so it does work.
So you call it food frequency. Let's talk about, you use supplements, food as a supplement.
Food as supplementation.
What does that mean to you?
You know, it's going back to Hippocrates, food is medicine. I mean, I think people have gotten so far away from food because there's all these crazy modalities out there. And I'm not saying they're not needed, but food is a foundation for who we are. We're human. We need food, water, and shelter, and air to survive. That's really what we need. And people are so far from that. We want to pull people back to the roots of who they are, which is nutrition. Because, like I said, we are a conglomeration of cells. Your cells produce energy, your hormones control your cells, but guess what controls the hormones? You. And food is what you're in control of to actually control your hormones so you can control your cell to control energy.
Okay.
So food is your supplement. You can get all your minerals, your vitamins, etc. from your food. Of course, it comes down to how you're breaking it down in the food you're eating, and we get specific with that.
Okay.
But we truly believe, and we're doing this with people all over the world, that when people have, constipation issues. I worked with a client recently, 67-year-old, came to us with anxiety and insomnia and constipation, and within 2 weeks, she's going to the bathroom, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to her because now she feels great. She feels better, and she knows that she's on the right path. And who doesn't like to go to the bathroom? You just
changed her diet, changed the way she handles stress.
Yeah, and not short of a time. Of course, there's a lot more work to do, but we know we're going in the right direction.
Now looking at your bio, you have strong opinions about roots and fruits versus leafy greens.
Yes. This is a big subject. A lot of people promote the use of leafy greens because of the mineral content and the vitamin content. But who's ever done the research on possibly the negative effects of overeating these types of foods? There's been certain people that have, but not a lot. And we study those people because we want to study the physiology of humans.
So what are the negatives?
Yeah, the negatives are...
Heavy metals found? Pesticides?
Not necessarily. The over-ingestion, there's two things in our opinion, is the over-intake of the cellulose, which can be inflammatory. Okay. Think about it. If you see food in your stool, which most of your listeners probably do, what do they see? They don't see potatoes, they don't see oranges, they see leafy greens. It's because of the high cellulose content and the higher balance of unsaturated fat to saturated fat that's in them, because it's their own protective mechanism against foreign invaders in the wild, and it actually inhibits our own enzymes, our own pancreatic enzymes, and we can't break them down. That's why you see it in your stool. So it causes more inflammation.
So you replace that with
fruits and roots.
And roots.
Because of their sugar content. And this is where people get so afraid because they hear the word sugar and they think insulin and diabetes.
Yes.
The bottom line is most people are having those issues because of all the packaged processed foods that have maltose, dextrose, sucralose, whatever it is, plus chemicals in them. It's not the sugar. Our body needs sugar. The brain's primary source of fuel is sugar, right? The liver needs sugar so you have energy so you can make thyroid hormone. I mean, it's science. You can't argue science.
So root vegetables like potatoes?
potatoes, any type of tuber, squashes, any type of tropical fruit that's ripe, you're going to get, and this is our point, you're going to get sugar, you're going to get fructose and glucose. Now we know that glucose by itself spikes insulin, breads, pastas, but it's been shown that the addition of fructose inhibits that insulin spike by glucose. So what do we get? We get a regulation of blood sugar, and that's what we're trying to do to create energy.
Now you put people, it's kind of like a zone, but everybody has a different zone.
Yes.
Right? A percentage of protein, carbs, and fats.
Yeah.
And you tailor that to the person?
It's all individualized. We take people through a process, right? Because we're all different. Everyone has, you might have insomnia, I might have insomnia, but for different reasons, right? We want to address that, and everyone has different metabolic needs. But we take people through a process so we can figure out what their body needs on a daily basis to not only fight stress, but to create wellness and create health. And we use food logs and body temperature and pulse.
You guys have a track record. I mean, Christa bragged about you behind your back, said these people get results. Good for you.
Yeah.
And we are out of time, but Christa wanted me to ask you about saturated fats versus polyunsaturated fats.
In a nutshell, saturated fats from healthy sources like coconut oil, let's say, are anti-inflammatory. They help to regulate our blood sugar, and they're pro-thyroid. The over-ingestion of polyunsaturated fats from fatty fish, fish oils, nuts and seed oils are anti-thyroid. And it takes...
So you don't like fish oils?
The excess intake, but no, we don't, because they're anti-thyroid. If you study the work...
What about eating fish?
Yes.
Like fatty fish?
We recommend whitefish. We recommend, shellfish and things like that. It's not that you can't eat salmon. It's the over-ingestion of them that becomes a problem. Everyone thinks polyunsaturated fats are anti-inflammatory. They are, because we produce them. But when you take in too many of them, they're actually anti-thyroid, and you need thyroid to produce energy. And that's what we're looking at the cell level. So they're anti-thyroid.
So you change their food, you change the oils, the fats that they intake.
Yeah.
And they get much better results.
Much better results.
This metabolic meter.
Yeah.
What is that to you?
Bottom line is, if you have health and disease over here and wellness over here, our goal is to get people to live and eat in a way that they're creating so much health that, we don't want people to diet so they can't, have a piece of pie or, stay up late. We don't want people to live in a glass bubble. But they're living in such a way that if they do stay up late or have a glass of wine or, have Thanksgiving dinner, they're able to buffer that. So now they're not going to bounce back to stress. They're not going to feel it as much because they have so much wellness. But when people are living at 50%, 60%, and they're cheating all the time, you can't buffer that. So you really feel the effects of alcohol. You really feel the effects of staying up late. You should be able to live in a way and enjoy life and not over-focus on your nutrition. It should support you, and it shouldn't imprison you.
How many times a day should people eat?
It's different for everyone. It's so individualized. I can tell you that I eat 6 times a day because you want to fuel the fire. You want to constantly put kindling on that fire to keep it burning so you have the energy you need, so you have the libido you want. If you don't have energy, you can't you don't want to do anything. And it takes food or sugar to produce energy.
So you work with people that are sick, and you also work with people that are just trying to lose weight?
Mostly people that are struggling, that don't have a libido, that are constipated, insomnia, anxiety, that can't play with their kids. They're just not feeling right.
And you see reversals in that all the time?
To this day, me and my wife are still astonished. We tell people, if you put in the work, that's just how much we believe in what we do. Not what we do, but what we teach our clients, because they're actually doing the work. We just teach it to them, and they're actually getting the results, so they need to pat themselves on the back. But we're still astonished to this day, the results people are getting. It makes us smile all the time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We're out of time. Final message, somebody watching this, and they think they've tried everything.
Yeah.
They can't lose weight, they're constipated, they're bloated, they're gassy, all the above.
Yeah.
But they've never hired a coach. They've never hired a nutritionist.
Yeah.
How do they get started with you?
They can go to our website at eastwesthealing.com. It's great because you can fill out a form and you get a free 15-minute consult. There's no obligation. You can ask us questions. We'll give you some insight on, 2 or 3 things you can do to get started.
Good. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. We'll be right back.
You're watching the Randy and Christa Show, news that makes you healthier. Randy, that was cool. I'm really curious what you thought of interviewing Josh, especially the piece on fat when he was talking about fatty fish. Was that kind of totally different?
It makes sense. And we've talked in the green room a little bit about this, but getting off of those, because people have a tough time digesting, I guess, leafy greens. So if somebody's really sick and you pull those out just at the beginning, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So your body has one less thing to work on as far as digestion and metabolism.
They can also be high in oxalates, which, people who are in adrenal fatigue, they can't handle too many oxalates and eventually could cause kidney stones. But
green
again,
drinks too. Is that true? They don't like green drinks when you're sick?
They are all about moderation. So it's not saying you can never have a green drink, but we live in an area where there's a juice bar on every corner, and people are having 1, 2, 3 a day. And so in their program, maybe one every other day, but just not as a general practice of forcing down the green drinks, which it does make sense from a mineral balance perspective within the body and how the kidneys react. The kidneys and the adrenals, they're also a team, and so we want to just give them food and nutrients that are easy to use.
Okay, good. And for people that haven't seen all of our shows, you are a very successful clinical nutritionist. Probably one of the most successful that I've ever met.
Thank
Not
you.
only financially, but the results you get. And I think it's big that you are so high on these two.
Yeah, I never...
Because you don't really have a private practice so much anymore where they go online and...
Yeah, but people still want to work one-on-one. The people who don't want to work with us in the larger groups or do our programs, or sometimes they'll go through our Gut Thrive program and then the hormonal piece is the final piece for them. So then I send them to Jeannie and Josh afterwards and they need that guidance. Or some people, they just need their hands held one-on-one, and I send them to Jeannie and Josh because they get results and because they focus on the whole person and their perspective is really broad and individualized, which I think is super important.
Okay, and the new year is right here. And I think everybody needs a coach.
Yeah.
I have my coaches, whether it's an audiobook or talking to people or picking your brain for something. I only take the advice.
You're my coach. We just went hiking and you told me all about Tony Robbins' philosophies and how to ask yourself positive questions. That stuck with me ever since.
Now this is what I'm not aware of anymore, and that is there's a lot of sick people out there. A lot of people that feel terrible.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not even aware of it, right? I don't even see these people.
I would say actually 85% of the population, even if they feel healthy, there's some level of symptomology that they're dealing with, and nobody has a healthy gut or healthy microbiome.
So if you feel lousy, do something about it.
Yeah.
Because you may lose 8-10 years of your life.
Exactly.
From 40 to 50 being miserable and depressed. So taking action now, doing something about it now.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
All right. Final word on you have a book in every bookstore, I guess.
Barnes & Nobles, yeah, our book's going well, How to Conceive Naturally, our Gut Thrive program.
Yeah, how do I tell people to go on your program, your online program?
Oh, Gut Thrive in 5, the number 5.com is the website. And actually a group of us are doing it now in the new year, and I was going to try to recruit you, now that we're neighbors, to have a whole team of people go through the cleanse. What do you say?
Okay.
Yeah, 10 weeks.
10 weeks?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do it.
All right. And then we'll talk about it.
News that makes you healthier. This really is news that makes you healthier, right? Are we the only news program that makes you healthier?
We're the only news program. We're positive news, you guys. Yeah.
All
news
right.
that
And
makes
they say
you
there's
healthier.
nothing good on TV. But the Randy and Christa show?
Yeah. We're
good
changing
stuff.
all that.
All right. You've been watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez, Christa Recchio, and we wish you good health.